Good morning, Jose. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for having you waiting a little bit, but that's the trick we do, so that the people can still come in, and we drag people from outside, out of buses, whatever, to come in. So sorry I was late. It's all my fault. It's all my mistake. And but I hope that you're gonna like it. And again, welcome to this SIS 2025 here in the beautiful Cascais. I don't know why they call this Lisbon. To me, it's Cascais, So I hope you slept well, because we have a program which are, let's say, 4 panel discussions and one how do we call this, workshop thingy going on, a master class after this one. But I'm not in it, so you can all come, right? You can all be there. That was not funny, right? That was not funny. Anyway, so we're going to talk about navigating interconnectivity and now and how we're going to do this in the future. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We're more than happy to, if we like the question, you can, do the question. If we don't like it, nah, we will not do it. No, kidding. So again, thank you for being here and the kickoff of the second day. I hope that all the tequilas are still where they should be. Luis, you said something? No, you want no tequila? No? Oh, okay. Anyway, I'll start with Emilio. Give them a quick round to tell who they are if you don't know them yet. And I'm very happy and honored and proud to have these senior experts to sit in my panel. So, Emilio.
Senior experts is better than dinosaurs, definitely.
That's me, by the way. Not funny. Thank you. They're not laughing. You see, it works.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Emilio Grebeau. I live in Paris and I work for China Mobile International, looking after the sales in Southern Europe. Been there for a little bit more than 7 years now. It's great to be here in Cascais, not Lisbon, as you were saying. We see a lot of things happening over here. Most of us were expecting things to happen maybe a little bit earlier, but we've all suffered from the delays on the arrival of a lot of cables. So as we were saying yesterday in the first panel, the next 4 years will be funky. I think
and juicy.
I think that's going to be great. So year on year, this event, I think, is going to get more interesting, richer, bigger. We have our eyes wide open, seeing what is happening in the region and how the region will evolve. I think it's quite clear to all of us, and that is something that Jorge was saying yesterday morning as well. We need to think about diversification. We need to talk about security of our networks, and with the geopolitical things happening, I think more and more, and especially some of us representing some APAC carriers, will be looking at alternatives, and alternatives will happen here, because from here we have the connectivity to Latin America, and from Latin America to the APAC region. I think things are going to get very interesting.
Cool. Thank you. Bernard?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so my Telstra, Bernard Push from, my main job is at Telstra. So Telstra is...
Don't make it complicated now, huh?
But unfortunately it is. So I kind of... on the one side, I look after Telstra's internet backbone globally. Telstra being at its base the incumbent carrier of Australia, but we also operate throughout all of the Asia-Pac region, India, China, even, and all the other countries in the region. But on the other side, which is kind of also has been very interesting for me, I'm also on the board of AMSIX, so that's one of the...
You're the chairman of the board.
I've just become the chairman of the board this week, yeah, so... of AMSIX, so I get to see the world from the internet exchange side of the business as well. So it's kind of interesting because I'm coming on the one side from an incumbent carrier who hate internet exchanges typically. Well, there's let's just say there's a tendency for them to hate them, but for reasons that you have to understand. But on the other side, I'm on the internet exchange where we're trying to break down those barriers. So it's kind of useful seeing things from both perspectives. Anyway, I won't go on because I'm sure you'll grill me about this
I would.
later.
I was counting the seconds, my friend. Thank you so much. Great having you, mate.
G'day. I am Australian, but I don't work for Telstra anymore. So my name's Mark. I head up product and business strategy for a company called Epsilon. We're an interconnect service provider, telco. We're owned by KT, so we are a KT division, but we trade under the Epsilon brand. I'm also on the program committee for the Global Peering Forum, so heavily involved in the peering side of the industry as well. And I'm a platform guy, so with my colleague, our CTO, built and designed the SDM platform that we have. We were probably the first one in the Northern Hemisphere, at least, to be
That's what
live.
they all say. We were the first.
Well, we were before Colt, and probably just after Telstra, who had bought a company called PacNet.
Huh?
But they're in the Southern Hemisphere. So yeah, but for us, we are more and more being forced and pushed into larger scale bandwidth solutions, which is meaning that KT is bringing us deeper from traditionally a layer 2 interconnect service provider, Ethernet, etc., into wavelength, and investing in fiber and ultimately in subsea and cable systems. So a real change for us over the last few years, particularly since COVID and since the acquisition by KT, which was 2.5 years ago. So our company is changing, as is the industry as a whole. And hopefully we'll grow with all of that additional growth.
Absolutely fine. Fantastic. Good having you. Pedro?
Hi, good morning. So I'm Pedro Val. I'm responsible to develop the business of PCCW Global in Iberia. So for those of you who don't know PCCW, we are a global service provider who have presence all over the globe in terms of people, in terms of infrastructure. And we just arrived to Portugal for the funky and juicy, right? Funky and juicy period. So we are starting now. We are as we speak, we are deploying our infrastructure here, building our POP in the in Linda Velha data center. And from that moment, we expect that all the Portuguese companies, Portuguese carriers, can benefit from not from our traditional portfolio, but also from our Console Connect platform, which is an SDN platform with a lot of automation and will allow companies to connect to data centers all over the globe, clouds, and they will do this in a matter of some clicks. For example, to keep it more practical, Rui, for example, in RAN, can decide to connect a customer in Mozambique just by going to a portal, getting a quote, and getting it deployed immediately. So it's the pricing will be good, we expect. But
that's what they all say, right?
It's not the main thing. The main thing is what you get in terms of speed. So you will be able to do this immediately. Sometimes it's not online, it takes a few minutes, but it will be near real time. And that's a big difference. And it will allow also Rui to connect to Epsilon data center in Singapore, or interconnect with China Mobile in Kenya, or simply for Telstra to connect to the cloud, for example, or for VDA to open an office in Mozambique, and you already have. Okay, so we change office, and then you can order an internet connection online. Okay, So that's a completely transformative experience. But there is a long journey until we get there. So, but we are on the funky and juicy period.
Thank you so much and welcome. Magda, please.
Are you able to offer an interconnection in the moon? No. Okay, because we are thinking. So I'm a lawyer, so a completely different perspective.
Okay. So, guys, you can move now out of the. You still have 1 second.
So I'm not sure I'm a lawyer or an engineer, as who once said when introduced me in a panel. So I think I have both perspectives.
I have thoughts.
Yeah. So, this is really an interesting sector. I've been working. Well, this is several sector actually. So I've been working in this field for more than 25 years, and if I say more, then I get too old and I don't want to. But but the interesting thing is that Bernard was saying that he has the perspective of the carrier, the telecom operator, traditional and internet point of exchange now perspective. I have all the perspectives. I've been working with incumbent operators, regulators, policymakers, new entrants. So all the market in all fields of the telecom sector, the data center sector, the infrastructures, the, let's say, the over-the-top solutions, the content, and also aerospace more recently. That's what I ask you if you could offer these type of services in the moon. We are not thinking about open an office in the moon so far. Yeah, we can start negotiating.
Such a sales guy, you know, unbelievable.
So, and I think you are right. I think this is the coming years will be very interesting for Portugal. Portugal is very well positioned, and we may talk about this during this session. And I think we'll have fantastic years ahead.
I believe so too, and we can clap for that, right? Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
You're on. You're
Okay.
on.
Bom dia. First of all, I'm very happy to be here because I see so many friendly, familiar faces. Maybe because I'm in the industry for a long time, many months. Many months. Many months. So right now I'm head of REN Telecom, part of the REN Energy Group. I'll tell you a little bit in the keynote, just a few more, so I won't bother you right now with this. But just to say, my background is I started off as an engineer. I don't know exactly how can I describe myself nowadays, but it's still a very important training, of course. And I started my career in the previous former international carrier in Portugal, which was Marconi by these days. So we handled submarine cables, satellites, everything. It was really great fun at the time. And then there was the opening of the market to competition, and I started off with ONI, which was the fixed line new kid on the block. It was also very good. I was in charge for wholesale, and this has been a bit a story of my life. Then I had a period with Deutsche Telekom, T-Systems, and now I'm here at REN and ready to tell you a little more about the market, the infrastructure market. So I'm the infrastructure guy in this panel.
Oh, that's beautiful. Because and you'll share a little presentation with us. Yeah. And I think you're going to talk about yesterday I called actually Lisbon and everything around it on the tech side. It's a diamond, and we just need to, you know, brush it a little bit to have it shine a bit more. So I think you're going to talk about diamonds, right?
Yeah. I was not supposed to do that, but I will do it for you. Let me take this one.
No, because I see a lot of women in, you know, diamonds are a girl's best friend, right?
Okay, so as I said, I want to talk about Portugal being a bridge to the world. This is not new. From a long time, Portugal has been a bridge to the world and from Europe to the world. But now the fact is that Portugal has become the new hub in Southern Europe, okay? And I will try to demonstrate this for you. So starting off with data centers, and I will give you just a bit of a flavor because the next panel will be with Portugal DC, and we'll give some more details about this market. This has been growing a lot. Since I spoke here last year, we have doubled the installed base on data centers in Portugal, and the pipeline we have is to increase it to almost 1,400 megawatts in 5 to 6 years, which is 40 times the current project. And this is This is driven by two main projects in Portugal. I will tell you just a little bit, just a glimpse of these, and then please stay for the next panel from Portugal DC. I will also be there. So Start Campus, I think it's well known to everyone. They have already started and built the first building in 2024, end of 2024, and they are supposed to build until 1,200 megawatts until 2030. Okay. The next project, a big project, is Merlin Properties with Edged. They are at the north of Lisbon. They have the plot of land. They are already starting already, and they are planning to build 180 megawatts. The first stage is planned to be due by 2027, and it will be around, I was told, around 40 megawatts. Okay, so then we have the Atlas Edge data centers in Lisbon. They are already finishing construction of Lisbon 1, which is due to be ready by the end of this year. We will be connecting there, right, Pedro? And it will start off with 8 megawatts, okay? But the list 2 will have 24 megawatts with no dates, at least to my knowledge, published so far. Then we had just last Monday the opening of list 2 from Equinix. Congratulations to Carlos and his team. It's very important. List 1, of course, is a very important data center in Lisbon. And I'm sure list 2 will follow up on that also. Then we have this Keta platform from a fund. I'm blanking, sorry. I don't remember the name of the fund, but I will tell you later when I remember. So this is a new platform. They have like 500 million euros to build 5 data centers in Iberia, one of them being in Lisbon. I know they are already starting off in Madrid, and Lisbon will come after that. I have no dates for that, but it's well funded, and this will happen for sure, I think. And then we have the Volteco data center, which is already the project is already ongoing in the south of Lisbon. They also plan to do something in the north, and it's a 6 megawatt data center. So I think this gives you an idea, and that's what I want to set the tone of how the data center business is growing. So this is an important pillar for the digital ecosystem, and it will grow. It will grow at a really very impressive, funky and juicy rate in the next 5 to 6 years, right? So it will be fun. For me, that I'm in the industry for so many months, it will be great. So I hope this will be really fun to watch and be part of with all of you, okay? There will be a place for everyone. Looking at submarine and also trying to give you a glimpse of what we have and what is happening, Portugal has always been a bridge. This is a fact, as you can see from this telegeography map. So Portugal connects Africa, South America, North America, Europe, of course, and Asia, which is something which is not common to many countries. There are not so many countries in the world, just very few, that can say that they connect 5 continents. So currently we have planned and active around 20 planned and active submarine cable connecting the 5 continents and more than 60 countries. Okay, so this is really very important and a very strong pillar for the digital ecosystem. We've had a gap since WOX 2 in 2012. Of 9 years where there was no build of submarine cables. But then we started off with Ela-Link in 2021. Is a 100 terabits per second submarine cable system. It's the only submarine cable system, major submarine cable system connecting Europe to South America. Built by Ela-Link, and the system keeps growing. They connect not just South America, but also some African countries, and they are now extending to French Guiana. So this is becoming a very important route in terms of diversification of traffic. Then we had 2 years later Equiano by Google. It's a 144 terabits system that connects Portugal to the West African coast. Very significant also. And the latest one we had in 2024, a 240 terabit system was to Africa, landing in Portugal and connecting Portugal with Europe, Africa, and even some Asian countries. So the ecosystem is very strong, but we'll have some more. And the ones that are confirmed, it's public knowledge, I understand, are Medusa, which is due, I think, a little bit after the end of 2025, but the date I have is 2025, that will connect Portugal to the Mediterranean countries. And there are talks and rumors, just that, it's what I heard here, about Medusa Africa, okay? So that will make it even more interesting to reinforce this connection to Africa, which will become a non-connected continent anymore, right? So it is really very, very relevant. Then we'll have Nuvem at end of 2026. It's a 360 terabits per system cable system by Google, connecting Portugal to the United States. Very strong alternative to North Atlantic routes also. And just to finish this, Pisces system, a small system connecting Ireland to Portugal and Spain, supported by European Union funds. And there are talks about others, which I cannot really tell you much more about. And then we have the existing domestic systems and the new ones, like the new continent, Açores, Madeira, which will be ready for service by 2026. They also play an important role. And there is also the announced Olisipo systems by Ella Link connecting Sines to Carcavelos. So it will be really very funny to watch all these things happening and the ecosystem working. Our contribution, and just to tell you a little more, I didn't say a while ago about how we can contribute to this. So starting off, we are part of a utility group. So Brent Telecom is here, and this energy group has electricity and gas, and we leverage on these infrastructures to be a neutral provider of telecommunications and data centers, okay? In Portugal. The business areas we have, the main ones are dark fiber. We have a national backbone with international interconnections to Spain, and we have 2 Tier 3 data centers in Portugal with different flavors offering. And then we have some more other offers on our portfolio, which are co-location, connectivity, and some turnkey projects that we do in the utilities market, which is not the scope here, but it's also very interesting to be, let's say, we are lucky to be in dark fiber and data centers, but also to be part of the energy world, which is, of course, very, very relevant to telecommunications. So in dark fiber, we have the largest and most stable neutral dark fiber in Portugal, with more than 8,000 kilometers made up of the electrical grid and the gas grid, and with a record number of interconnections to Spain. We have 7 interconnections with Spain and growing. There will be one more announced soon. And we connect to open access cable stations in Portugal. And this network can be accessed from more than 200 fiber access points, which are the electrical substations and gas stations. So we support the business of many national and international companies in this network, which is a true backbone with carrier-grade SLAs, which is, I think we'll have the chance to talk about this, more and more important for the future development of connectivity to have this kind of networks. So 2 complementary networks, the electrical network, which is mostly aerial. When you go on the motorways, you see the big towers. On top of that, there is an optical ground wire cable where our fibers run. They run very high, which makes this immune to fire. So this is very resilient, very stable network. We are expanding, by the way, we are expanding the connections to this trunk network. This is a trunk network. So we are expanding like last mile connections to make it more connected. And then we have the gas network, which is buried all the way. And this offers 2 interconnections to Spain, and we are expanding here. So I think we have a contribution here, which allows for a very optimal mix of both latency, scalability, resilience, and a good match of interconnections. And of course, carrier-grade SLAs, which are really, really very important. So on the data center side, our contribution, like I mentioned, are 2 data centers in the north of Portugal, which are here, okay? And these are, I will say this is the best data, sorry, apologies. This is the best data center because this is almost sold out, all of them. And so we have plans to expand here. Here we serve enterprises. These are like 3 megawatts data centers, not huge data centers. It's not our positioning here, but we serve enterprises and we plan to expand in the south, in Lisbon and other locations, both organic and non-organic, since we have access to land, access to power, and of course, access to fiber. So my message is this infrastructure is really foundational. So I wanted to start with infrastructure to set the tone on how, so not that now, Eric, we can discuss all the other parts, important parts of connectivity. So I'll leave you with that, okay? Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions in the audience, maybe? For Rui? There you go. Is it, but before you ask a question, is it a nice question?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Okay, okay.
Well then, Rui, perhaps you can tell us more about what happened with electricity power supply a couple of weeks ago.
Once the Spanish tell us, we will tell you.
Thank you for your question.
True answer.
Yeah, no, it is what it is, right?
What happened in Portugal is just we were importing 30% of energy from Spain, and suddenly there was no more energy. So it's impossible to react to that, and so we had a blackout like in Spain.
Get any feedback from?
No feedback. Officially, no feedback. Okay.
And you know how it goes, huh? And then it fades away and nobody's asking anymore. Huh? That's how we do it, right?
There was a
Next year.
There was a great cartoon in one of the French newspapers of what caused the outage, and it was the picture of Don Quixote with his long lance, and behind him were all these windmills that were all completely broken because his lance had gone through the windmills.
Perfect. We have a question over there. Please.
Actually, the answer was yesterday on the Mayo presentation. It was Homer.
Yeah, but Homer is a bummer, right? So, but good to know. All right, thank you so much. Let's move. And thank you for your for sharing the nice presentation you had. Really, really good. Interconnectivity now and in the future. Who shall I? Emilio. So, give us an overview. What do you see from CMI? What's the current situation, and what are the biggest trends, the factors affecting the current connectivity in the region here? What do you see?
Well, before coming to the region here, I think something that we all have been suffering the past few months is what is going on the Red Sea, and that was huge. Several cable cuts at the same time that impacted all of us, and no real time to recover, because the ships were not able to go on site. That was a huge point of failure, I think, for our networks, and the fact of having so many cables going down at the same time. And not only that, at the same time that those cable cuts were happening, we were building these new cables that we were talking about to Africa, Peace, and many other cables going through that region. And still today, we are late on deploying those cables because still we are recovering from everything that has happened in the region. So that is something where we need to put an eye on. Of course, since years, I was working at that time with Telecom Italia Sparkle. We were looking at alternatives to go through land from on the Mediterranean, well, on the Middle East region, and that was 15 years ago. Still today, we don't. Well, there are solutions, but the price is just humongous. So that is something where we need to put an eye on. What are we going to do there? Do we have the possibility to offer a real alternative going through the Middle East at a decent price? Something that we saw in China Mobile as well was, guys, we have a terrestrial network linking Europe to Asia. Why don't we use it? But still the same, huge prices, disruptions with the connectivity because we go through some countries, and then the conflict in the Russia-Ukrainian situation. So what do we do? And now to come to your question, Eric, about here where we are today, I think one of the solutions is going to happen here, and we see it now with everything that is going on with the connectivity from here to Africa, to Asia, and especially what is going to happen towards Latin America. And then once we're in Latin America, maybe we need to go over and go to Asia, and that is something that some of us Asian operators are thinking about now. So I think definitely Lisbon is going to play a huge role there. That's more or less what we see. So we're really looking forward to the next steps.
Okay, Bernard?
You hear me? Yeah. So look, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a specialist on the European market, but it's kind of interesting. I find what is going on in terms of the exhaustion of capacity on systems, right? So what we are seeing is the demands that are driven by the huge deployment from the hyperscalers, but also the kind of demand that comes from that to AI training engines and stuff like that is eating up capacity at a rate that is quite phenomenal. And unfortunately, that causes spikes in prices, because what happens is you get short-term shortages of capacity at particular times. So you need to be quite careful, like when you buy your capacity, because if you buy it at the wrong time, or if you're forced to buy it at the wrong time, you could be paying 30, 40, 50% more than you would if you bought it at the right time. Because these cables are having upgrade cycles, and if you happen to come along after Facebook happens to want to activate 10 terabits, then you're out of luck, basically. So this is kind of, so you have to, the planning of some of this is kind of interesting at the moment, actually, because so a lot of this is driven not kind of directly by the internet, but it's kind of the volumes of capacity that the hyperscalers and others, not just the hyperscalers, because there's lots of tributary companies that work with them, and everyone builds their network based on 100 Gs these days. I mean, it's 10 Gs. I mean, unless you're doing DNS or stuff that's really low bandwidth, but pretty much everything is using up huge bandwidth, and AI training engines just suck bandwidth like crazy. Now, you could say that right now, are we having a bit of a 2003 moment again, where everyone's getting hyper excited about AI, and that's causing a kind of overbuild in the network? So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Is it really an overbuild or not? But certainly, yeah, that's one of the challenges right now, is to know when to buy and to forecast that buying as well.
So smart there as well, right? To be smart.
But yeah, you got to be smart. Well. Yeah.
Okay.
If to your original question and to what Emilio was saying as well is, so I did a presentation to the US banking and finance industry a year ago around SDN and stuff like that. What became really clear to me was, what do those guys need, and what do they want? And what they want is visibility of routes that we saw up on the screen before. They want immediacy of being able to control their traffic across all the different routes around the world for redundancy because of the issues that we're seeing in terms of cable cuts that affects Bank of America or Citibank and all these guys. And they want the ability to know what capacity is available so that they can be more dynamic in how they control their network. So that was a really interesting thing that's come out because of the geopolitical situations we have around the world, their concerns about their traffic and security as well. But for them, it's you guys interconnect each other, present that information to us, and we will use your network. And it was kind of, okay, that's kind of an interesting approach. So this interconnectivity thing is really important for us all of us guys to interconnect with each other, but to present that information to our customers. And yeah, maybe they won't stay on our network all the time, but they will always come back to us. So I thought that was really informative for me. I did the presentation, but I probably learned more than what they did.
They want to have visibility.
Visibility, absolutely. And then the ability to control across multi-connected
Yeah, well,
network.
then I'll call JP Morgan because that will go too far. They can see only as much, right?
Interesting thing is some of them are maybe prepared to fund some of this too. As long as they get the IPR or they get control of that domain.
Yeah, absolutely. Magda, what's your take? I mean, these are all telco guys, they rattle, they talk, they say how good they are, whatever. But how is it for real,
Well, I think that resilience and the opportunity to have different paths in telecommunication is an issue that is in the European agenda for quite some time. And I've listened to previous panels and everyone was criticizing regulation, and I do agree in part with it. But the truth is that regulation also plays an important role, and this is a good example. I don't know if just to give you two information that might be interesting for everyone in the room. The European Commission published in February 24 a very interesting policy paper called How to Master European Digital Infrastructures. And resilience was precisely one of the challenges that they identify, together with connectivity and other technological challenges and another challenge. So, and this paper, it's really interesting. And I see that companies do need to look into regulation in a more strategic perspective. I do agree that we have a lot of bureaucracy in regulation, but regulation is important in setting up the parameters for resilience and for companies to be able to, let's say, to offer this type of resilience to customers. And we see after the outage that happened in Portugal, we had contacts for many, many international groups asking us, how can we demand this from the telecom operators and from the whole digital ecosystem? And what options do we have? And what can we say to the Portuguese government? So everyone was really concerned, and this is what was a good warning. It was for us to be prepared for the future.
Actually, the interesting thing about regulation, actually, I find, is comparing Europe to Asia, right? Where here, I mean, I find one of the advantages in Europe is because we're kind of more joined up in terms of our regulatory environments. I'm not completely joined up, I think, but we're a hell of a lot more joined up than they are in Asia, because every market, every country is trying to kind of protect their own, certainly, to a certain extent. And in some cases, they make bad decisions and they're actually turning people off. So Indonesia is an example of that. Right now in Asia, Indonesia ought to be a really good market, but unfortunately, they've screwed down the regulation in such a way that it's become difficult for tech companies, especially.
Very challenging
to come into the market. And they've turned that whole engine of AI and everything that everyone's talking about off.
Yeah, it's true. And it's true. It's important that companies do realize this, because we blame regulation for not being developed or for not having AI, large language model. And it's not true. I mean, the AI Act, for instance, was approved recently. It's not in force yet. And we still don't have a large language except for Mistral, the French model. So I mean, there is a very interesting paper that I read that was actually written by an American at one of the top universities. And he said the problem in Europe is much more a thing of scale. And this has already pointed out here yesterday. We don't have the scale, and each country still behaves as an individual country. So the French try to defend their business, the Portuguese their business, and so on. So, and the other issue is the financing process and the interconnection between the investigation centers, the companies, and the financing world. Europeans are risk adverse, and that is our main problem. Yeah, I would say that to start with, this would be my comment.
Okay, no, thank you, and Magda, because it's really good, and to point out that sure we need regulation, and those are not the bad guys. You know, we need guidelines, otherwise we will make a mess out of it. You know, we did this in the past. We need those guys. Very simple. They have a really strong thing there. And yes, we also, as let's say the operators or the service providers, we need to educate them. We need to not only ask, but also tell them why. You know, over and over again.
The coffee that you mentioned with the regulator yesterday, it's very important because the regulator really, sometimes they don't have information. They have small teams. I'm heading a team of 25 lawyers. We are a law firm of 350 lawyers.
Only.
In Portugal and in several African countries. And it's very demanding for us even. And we have knowledge management team that provides us information. Only the digital economy before, I mean, it's really huge, and so it's difficult sometimes for regulators to understand the business, to understand difficulties. So they try to do their best. I'm not saying this happens every time. Sometimes no, but it's really important that companies start to collaborate as well with the regulators and inform and help them to make informed decisions about the market.
That's why they invented coffee, right?
Exactly.
That's exactly.
But they also need to stay. I mean, the tendency is because they're under not enough people, they also sometimes take too much input from one actor only, and they need to take input from multiple
the ecosystem.
Actors.
It's true.
Because the incumbent carriers can often, and I work for an incumbent carrier, so I understand some of the problems with an incumbent carrier who are, for obvious reasons, trying to defend their network and their ownership of the network. That's a natural thing for them.
I worked for many years for incumbents, so I also know the feeling. Yeah, you are. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And some regulators even they try to show up a bit that they have a liberalized country and that they have many competitors, and that is not necessarily good. In fact, I mean, for a country like Portugal, for instance, should we have more than 3 MNOs, for instance? Just a question.
Pedro? What's your take on the connectivity?
I think what we've seen from Rui's presentation is that Portugal seems to be very well connected. So you see the submarine cables Rui showed. We are connected to almost anywhere in the world. Apart from that, we have a lot of terrestrial routes coming out of Portugal to the north of Spain, to different from the left, from the Pyrenees, to the right, to the Pyrenees. So we have plenty of infrastructure. We are now building a lot of data centers. So we have more or less everything. What's missing? I was talking with Mark before, and we were discussing one topic that seems to be something we are not yet there, which is the automation and interconnectivity. So let me take a big risk here and ask something to the audience. If you can raise your hand, if your company is today ready to buy and deliver telco services online. Do you have a process for that? Are you able to do that? Come on, I was expecting at least 1 or 2 hands, no? One.
There is
one.
half,
There is
half
one in
a
the panel.
hand. 2 fingers.
Louis also. Okay.
There we
3.
go.
So, and
Hey, Carlos.
okay, and there are these are probably the most advanced carriers in the region that are here. So the other ones that are not here are even in an earlier stage. So that's probably the challenge we have for the next years is to allow that, for example, others to work on your networks, allow others to get information from your network, to be open, to be much more collaborative.
Then we come again to piece of you know, the feasibility.
Yes.
And you're talking about a more efficient.
This will
Together
simplify
with
everything.
feasibility, yeah.
Then we might have an issue with the regulation, but, it will simplify the work of carriers. It will reduce costs, and at the same time, enterprise customers will benefit in the end. Okay.
Add something in terms of regulation. Also, this paper that I was referring and the vision of the Commission at that time actually was extremely criticized because the Commission is promoting a more concentration of power. Europe, I think, has 7 times more operators than a consolidated market like the US, for instance. So this paper was extremely criticized because until up now, Europe has been trying to diversify operators in every country. But this paper is giving another interesting trend that I think we will have in the future is a more integrated regulation and provision of more integrated services between cloud, telecom operators, and edge computing services and so on. So the Commission is preparing a new regulation. I hope they revoke some, and they intend to revoke. Expected to be known end of this year, which is called the Digital Networks Act. And so this Digital Networks Act will incorporate basically all the telecommunication regulation that we know so far, but we'll also have on it submarine cables regulation. We don't know yet in what trend, in what path, but also cloud computing. So a more integrated vision of the digital economy.
Total package.
Exactly.
The total package. Okay. Well, that's good. Let's wait for that. And
I mean, but the US is actually not as simple as people think either, right? Because the reality is, even though those borders, you can't see them on the map, there are telecom borders in the US.
But they exist.
And those telecom borders are from the old CLEX and ILEX that existed before. You just can't see them on a map.
For the number of people they have in the country, and the number of operators is lesser than in Europe. That's the point. So much lesser, yes.
All right, Rui. We were talking about interconnectivity. So immediately you talk about capacity. One say, we have enough capacity. The other said, no, we still have a shortage. What's your view on that?
Well, adding on the previous discussion, I think we have to look at interconnectivity as a platform. I think that's the view, and not just plumbing. So we have to look at this as a strategic layer. Okay, and I think that the Commission can play an important role, and regulation also is also very important. So about the shortages, I think there are some bottlenecks which are already referred in the Red Sea, for instance. There are some northern routes which are still in the Atlantic that are still too much predominant. But I think it will be, because of this, it will be more and more important to diversify the routes from a geopolitical point of view. And for sure, I think Portugal can play a role there. But we will need not just the infrastructure I showed, I'm very conscious about this, but to have this strategic platform vision, which cannot be just from Portugal. It has to be from Portugal and Spain and from the rest of Europe.
Okay.
Just to comment, just on Lisbon itself, I think it will be the second digital onboarding hub for Europe, if it isn't already, after Marseille. I think the thing that Portugal has to solve to grow that as well is provide affordable wholesale networking from Lisbon into the rest of Europe, solve that problem, as they've started to do in France, as an example, and this place will explode. So, and that comes from a wholesale buyer, so to speak. So as soon as the pricing gets to a point where it's brilliant, this place as an interconnected port into the UK, Eastern Europe, Central Europe will take off. It's happening now anyway.
So you do agree with me, it's the diamond.
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, look, the other thing that I think is interesting was what, so one of the things I've seen in Asia is the internet is also changing quite a lot, right? So and in Asia, there were basically 3 interconnection hubs: Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, and everything went into that. And now what you're seeing is secondary interconnection hubs turning up because the cloud providers, and especially as you go into AI, they need to, for certain applications, not for all applications, but for certain ones, they need to be closer to the users because otherwise the latency is too long. And so they want to be closer, but there's also that cost. And so if you make the cost too high, they will serve the 11 million people, or whatever it is here in Portugal, from Madrid because it's cheaper. Or even from Paris or Frankfurt or somewhere like that. Whereas if you make it easy for them, then they'll come closer. And then once they come closer, they build their own ecosystem in this market. And that's when you need the internet exchange, because the internet exchange, those tech companies need to be able to swap data between each other, because that's, it's not just the Googles and the Facebooks and the Metas, and there are lots of other smaller companies that are doing security or doing all kinds of other stuff around the outside of it that feed off of the big players. And the internet exchanges are an important part of that, which is why the internet exchange comes into this discussion as well. It's not, and the interesting thing is, and what you can make use of, I think, is that as this general tendency is happening that the tech players want to get closer to the users, they want to be in Lisbon, right? But if you make it too hard for them, for whatever reason, because the local incumbent wants to protect their turf, or incumbents want to protect their turf, or there's no internet exchange, or other things, not enough power, or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different aspects that play. Then they will not come.
Let me add, because I fully agree with you, and there is also another trend, a technological trend that will contribute to it, IoT, and the autonomous cars that we have in all the, for instance, in Europe. I don't know what is the situation in Africa, but Europe is under a huge transformation in terms of intelligent roads and so on. So we'll need closer edge computing systems near where they are needed. Exactly, where they are needed. So. Yeah. I think these are fascinating times for a telecom operator, because they have to rethink again all the business and take the opportunity. And I fully agree with you. It's a different model that we are introducing right now with 5G, then 6G, and also IoT becoming more and more operational.
Yes, please.
To that point on the internet exchange, though, here in Europe, we lead the charge in terms of the growth of the ecosystem joining an IX, and Equinix has done this very well. Lynx and Bernard's AMSIX was probably the first company that got a bank established in the IX, and as soon as you get ABN AMRO, their ecosystem starts to join the internet exchange. As long as they got an ASN, Lynx has now done an extremely brilliant job at extending that ecosystem. It's not just carriers, ISPs, and content guys now. It's digital ecosystems joining the IXs in Europe. The United States is way behind that, by the way. Most of the IX people in the US don't get it at all.
No.
And APAC's kind of waking up to that. And Equinix has a big part to play in terms of that mentality of just bringing everybody to the IX. And they do that quite well. DKIX is doing it as well. AMSIX was probably the first one that I ever noticed when, my God, a bank has joined the IX. That changes the game in terms of people like us as telecom service providers as well. We're not in control of that interconnectivity anymore.
No, wake up.
Exactly.
Wake up. because the ball is rolling. The digital transformation is there. And if you don't, you know, it's like when the OTT came, the hyperscalers came, operators were sorry, operators, but you were still sleeping, you know, and you didn't know what happened left and right. And then, you know, let's be agile here, minimum. Peering, quickly. I wanted to touch base a bit on peering. Who wants to bump in? Something about peering. Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
happy to. What would you
Yes,
like?
please. No. Just where does
What's going
peering
on?
come into place here, especially on the interconnectivity?
Well, both
Short.
of us can talk. Look, since COVID, during COVID, unfortunately for companies like us, remote peering providers, IXs or whatever, it was a boom time. I mean, basically everybody went online, as we all know, right? We all know the story.
Nobody was complaining
Yeah.
on the telco side, right?
So, you know, if you look at 10 years ago, if you're looking at a remote peering service, quotes were 10 meg, 100 meg. And that might be a near-term connection or a long-distance one. Now, we don't get quotes anything less than, like, it's 10 gig and 100 gig. And now I think Lynx has now deployed nearly 400 gig interfaces in the last 6 months. It's insane, the growth. That growth to interconnect.ix is driving the growth in all of our networks. It's driving the growth in subsea systems. The growth of peering in terms of remote peering extensions is now, we're seeing huge demand coming out of Latin America and Asia Pacific to peer in internet exchanges here in Europe. So you're building those cable systems, they're going to get full up even just from peering. So peering is a brilliant industry to be in right now. And you see the investment in terms of IXs having to spend a lot of money to upgrade their domestic network.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you see the growth in areas like Africa, where Lynx and DKIX and Asteroid are helping local incumbents by building, deploying, and maybe even managing IXs for them there because of the growth slower, but in Africa. So peering is really driving for Epsilon and KT, driving huge growth in our network, and we see that right across the board.
Okay, Benna?
Look, so yeah, I think it's a critical part of it, but it plays a slightly different part than people think, right? Because what you're trying to do to build a country up as a center for internet development is you want to create that ecosystem. Because so the tendency of the carriers and the incumbents is always, yeah, we can sell you transit. So transit is basically access to the rest of the internet via a carrier. But if you work in the internet industry, you realize that the problem with transit is you don't control it. So because the internet is basically made up of through this protocol called BGP that I think should be absolute learning for everyone to understand at least the principles. BGP. To understand the principles of how BGP works. You don't have to understand the details, but just the principles. And if you want to control your network in any real way, and the OTTs, the tech companies, they really do. They know, they all understand BGP because they're brought up on it. You need to avoid transit. So transit is basically the way that a real carrier internet guy looks at the internet is the first thing they think about is who do they peer with, right? That's the first thing. And then everything else that they can't peer with, they'll buy transit to get to, right? Transit is the last resort. Now, the trouble is the carriers look at it the other way. They want everyone to, because so that they can control it. And this is the kind of dichotomy you've got. You've got the local incumbent carriers, like we are in Australia. We're not immune to this either, who want to control all of that. And then, but actually by trying to control it, you're actually restricting the traffic locally and you're stopping tech companies building their hubs here. And once those hubs create here, that will also drive more bandwidth in the long run, because then your peripheral countries, like maybe some of the countries in West Africa who also need some of that content, or in South America, there might be some interesting content here that is close enough for them to reach with reasonable latency. Not as good latency as if they were in Lisbon, of course, but at least acceptable. And then that drives additional activity here in this region, right? So that's kind of the environment I think you want to create in Portugal, is to first of all attract that center of gravity, and then and I look at the internet. We look at our networks in terms of, we call it gravity, right? Because if you build the right ecosystem, it actually sucks traffic onto your network. It literally sucks it on, and BGP is the engine that's doing that sucking, and we call it internet gravity, and that's kind of what you'd want to create, I think, here.
Okay, thank you. Quickly,
Yeah,
Mark?
just quickly on that, I think there's a real space for regulatory, not intervention, but monitoring around peering. The prevalence of paid peering can disrupt the normal workings of the open internet, so to speak. Vodafone have now publicly announced that they are moving to a predominantly, if not total, paid peering environment, and bringing their millions and millions of eyeballs to you if you pay for it. My company, KT, enforces paid peering to peer with them from outside of Korea. And in South Korea, the government, the regulator, has enforced paid peering. So this is not conducive to, well, it's not delivering the best performance, experience, and cost experience for the subscriber. So there's a really interesting area for the regulator, particularly here in Europe, where if we've got anyone from Deutsche Telekom and that, they've always done interesting things.
An old one sitting here.
And with other companies to get around having to have open peering. So I think that's a really interesting area. Keep an eye on that, because basically everybody wins in the world if we have a good open internet utilizing BGP to move your traffic around the world as effectively as possible.
All right. We have to close it. And we can talk for hours, right? Which we do in different and more sessions, 3 more sessions to come and after here, because Aurelia's already looking at me like, watch the time, move on. So I will. But before we go, I want to give the word quickly to Ray for his closing statement. And before that,
I'll try to be fast. But anyway, I just
Take
wanted
your
to
time.
say that you were talking about peering. I was remembering when at Marconi many months ago, we built the first transit product. It was Marconi Internet Direct. It was a long time ago. The world has changed a lot. I just wanted to add something. I asked you a while, you didn't give me the words, so I have to say something. It's very practical and coming from my experience. Data centers, of course, play a very important role here. And what we see in data centers is that they just care about building the energy, the cooling, and then they don't care about connectivity. And then you have like a huge refrigerator, and you have no connectivity, and players like us won't go there unless we have an anchor client. So I think I leave this message that data centers should consider interconnectivity. No, they just forget about this. I know from experience, and I've seen this happening here in Portugal. So just a message on that. It's just 1% more on the budget, and it's really important to put some money on building basic connectivity to the data center. Otherwise, you have a huge refrigerator, which is useless, and you have a lot of trouble. So, Eric, the world is changing. It's changed a lot. In many months, I've seen some changes. So we cannot go on with the same. I think I made it clear. Resilience. We made it all clear. Resilience and route diversification are mandatory. A good framing, good regulatory framing, and even political framing. I think it's very important that we find the right balance. The edge, Magda told us about this. Will play a fundamental role with AI, with autonomous cars, IoT, all of that. And I think we didn't talk about this, but we'll do it next year. Sustainability is very important, of course, so is a driver. So the future won't be about building more of the same. The future will be about building smarter, closer, more green, and more collaborative interconnections.
Just better.
Just better, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here, for sharing your time, valuable time with us. Thank you for your questions. And as said, in a couple of minutes, we'll move on with more and more and more and more info and knowledge sharing panel session. I would like to thank my panel dearly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And stay tuned. More to come.